Very good. That is, in fact, Middle Head. It's not an island, though.
Not
It's
an island, you're right. Sorry.
an extremely low tide, so it's kind of at the foot of a cliff.
Usually it's not safe to land on Middlehead.
Oh, yeah, but look how calm it was.
Yeah.
So I was
Can I
lucky.
tell you so when we cross over to South Head, there's a little thing called Pig and Bay Reef. Have you seen it? So it's just behind you. So it's this actually you can see it on the my right corner of your post. You can see that post there?
That's North Head.
No, so the direction to which the boat is heading.
This way. Oh, I can't see my hand. This way.
Yeah, that way. There's a post
That's
there.
North Head, right?
Yeah. As I'm saying, there's a post there, and then there's several posts, and there's a reef there. And so when you're crossing over, the ships can't get there. And so even though it's a long crossing, which is usually dangerous, it's not
I used to do
problematic.
that all the time. I used to go in at Watson's Bay, and then I used to go. There's a Penguin Beach.
Yeah.
Before you get to Manly.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't think it's a long crossing. It used to take me about 25 minutes, and I'm not a fast.
It's a long crossing, given like how short you want crossings to be in general.
Yeah. It's a safer crossing than the one I had to do to get here, because that's Nelson Park behind me where I put in. And it's like a bloody ferry highway. There's one there now. So.
Yeah, fair enough.
I wish I was there today. It's actually really calm today. It would have been a good day, but I'm staying off the harbour just for you guys in the webinar. So thanks for joining us, all 9 of you, and a handful of people who are asking questions. So go to Menti now and pile them on. Before we go to Menti though, I just want to, because it's our last webinar before the final exam, I just want to promote this page again. Where is it? Final exam. Oh, and all these quiz things there. I have added something to the FAQ, which, did you think that was okay, Shaun, or a bit silly?
The graph? I thought it was great.
Well, I mean, if you can, you guys are busy people. If you can read and understand this, then you're good to go. There are no late submissions. At precisely 9 a.m, the submission box will close. It will disappear. You will not be able to submit. You are strongly advised to submit well before this time, several hours if possible, or at least submit your progress. So if you can understand that, you're good. But to use Rebecca's terminology, I learned on Wednesday, the peripheral? I forget, the peripheral form of convincing people, or?
Oh, the superficial.
Man, that was difficult, that social psychology webinar. Half the time I just always assumed in a very biased way that social psychology is easy. It certainly isn't. If you can understand this, you're good to go as well. So give yourself a few hours buffer. Do not linger around Canvas. But then if that wasn't enough, I've got this PDF, and you asked before, Shaun, can we make people look at this before they even start their final exam? We can't, because the final exam's on a different Canvas site.
Okay.
I have no control over it. So, I mean, that's good and bad. It stops coordinators messing things up. So, I don't know. I'm thinking maybe I email a link to it next week or something like that. I haven't sent an email for a long time because they're just getting bombarded by emails. So, but basically this says, stay the hell away from here. I drew it in reverse order. This is what I wanted to draw. This is what the entire graphic is about. The rest of it, it's good advice, but this is the main thing. Make sure you're done and dusted and finished before you hit that 2 hour before due date mark, because all our data for the research report suggests that people bounce around the Canvas site right up to then, and that's where we get biology assignments submitted, or that late one that one I asked you to mark this week, Shaun, it wasn't a late one. It was one of your students had submitted a Word document that had no words in it. So just a tragedy. Imagine how...
I believe I emailed them as well. and they didn't check until then. So it's...
Man. Well, see, the thing is I can't do that because it's not on my Canvas site. If I was running the exam on my Canvas site, then I'd be able to use SRES to send really personalized emails saying, hey guys, there's 3 hours to go and you still haven't submitted. You know, I can't do that because they're not giving me access because they don't, well, I'm sure they would trust me, but they don't trust coordinators in general. So
Yep.
Have a look.
Let's start fielding some questions.
Yeah. Okay.
I agree. It's important to look through, but these 17 are highly engaged. So I'm assuming that they're not the target audience, is it?
Oh, no, we're going to answer this first one. Can I answer? Read it out first, Shaun.
What is your advice for studying specifically for psychology? What is your advice for studying in general? What do you think of the Pomodoro technique? You go first. Go for it, Caleb.
I was just going to answer the Pomodoro technique. I don't know about the Pomodoro technique. This came up in a prior webinar.
Can I say, right? So let's treat the Pomodoro technique and let's treat studying as you would with taking medicine, right? And so with taking medicine, you would say that before I try something that is experimental and that will cost me a lot of money, I'm going to see if it's been evaluated. With the Pomodoro technique, when you type it into the UCID library, you do not see any evaluations. I checked, right? You don't see any systematic randomized control trials that compare Pomodoro to anything else. And it's asking you for quite a lot of money. It's just not worth it. That's just my fundamental thing. If you're treating it like medicine, it might work, but it's asking you to sink your time and it's asking you to sink a serious amount of money into it. Why do it? Avoid it. All of the cognitive benefits that they have there have been individually evaluated in previous studies. So things like time management is a great idea, but you don't need to pay for a tomato timer to do that.
Student said there was a free course in the library that was going to mention it. So it's not.
That's what a student did say, but they never got back to us. So it makes me think they didn't.
It's not locked behind a paywall, but you would worry if the university's been infiltrated and someone is asking for money at some point. But, you know, you study, you take regular breaks, and you check your work.
That doesn't sound like you need to pay $100. Check the pricing, Caleb. It's exorbitant. It's extremely expensive for something.
Anyway, if I'm looking up the Wikipedia page, I'm not the correct person to ask, but Shaun, as you can see, has all kinds of heuristics about why it's a bit dodgy. What about these other questions? What is your advice for studying specifically for psychology? Is psychology different?
No, it's not
in some
different.
way?
No, I don't think it's different to anything else that you would study for in general. And I think that one of my favorite researchers, Karpicki, he had a fantastic quote, which is that when you're being tested on anything, it's going to be asking you to do something. Whatever that for something is how you should be studying. So if it was music and you're going to be asked to play guitar, you wouldn't be asked to study guitar, music notes, music sheets. You'll be asked to play guitar in studying. Same thing with an exam, right? We are being asked to retrieve particular pieces of information. And so because that's what the test is going to ask you to do, that's how you should study. With a maths exam, you're going to be applying formula, so you apply formula. The basic principle is that whatever the test is going to require you to do is how you should study. For our test and for exams across the university, it's retrieval and application of knowledge. And so that's what you should do. Oh, I love these slides, Caleb.
So this is from the lecture I gave to you in March, lecture number 1. It's been recorded. You can watch it again. Towards the end of that lecture, I talk about rereading, no, practice testing, yes. And Shaun could give us a 1-hour lecture just on that slide.
Yeah.
Test enhanced learning, yes. Well, Ian Johnson years ago made fun of this slide because what did he say? What did he find?
Accept your humanity.
Oh, yeah. He thinks that's hilarious. Look,
it is hilarious.
We need more of that in the world today, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
Full of narcissistic, blind people. Geez, that's all it was. So it was literally just saying, look, if you're studying rereading and rereading,
well, go up to start with the first page, right? The one with the that was note taking, right? So one more up above that, yeah.
Yep.
Is your exam going to ask you to take notes?
No.
No. Go to the next one. Is it going to ask you how well you can read? Sort of, but adjunctively, right? It's not actually that. Yeah. The last one, though, is it going to test you? That's the answer. It's yes. Yeah. Same thing with highlighting, same thing with anything. Just ask yourself, is this what the test is going to ask me to do? And if it's not, then you don't need to study that way.
Yep. Okay. Good, clean answer. When will we...
you got to show the screen. I'm going to miss you guys, by the way. This has been really good. We're not going to do 2 webinars next semester, right, Caleb? It's only 1 a week.
One per week, yep.
If you guys really hate that, go to menti.com and tell us. And if you get enough likes, maybe we'll continue to do 2, but it's a big time investment. When will we lose access to Canvas, modules, lectures, files, and our work? I don't know the answer to this, Caleb. Do you?
I'm worried it's the end of June, because every time I try and put up something past the end of June, it yells at me. So just make sure you backed everything up. In terms of report writing modules, they'll be available until the end of your psychology career. But make sure you've backed up, particularly your report feedback, because it's going to be annoying to lose that, because you probably will have to do another report.
Good. How do we approach the personality practice questions? It seems like we have practiced MCQs for the whole semester. Just got confused by this long question. Could you go load up the personality practice question?
Oh, the one on the page I've actually got open.
Yeah. It's the one about Troy.
How do you practice it? Well, you're not meant to do this question. This is a question that formed the personality tutorial, so you would have done it in your tutorial already.
Can I interrupt you just for a second?
Yeah.
So when I was doing the practice exam that you guys sent, I didn't see a single question that was longer than one of those paragraphs. Would you say that's a fair thing? Like, I didn't see anything that was as long as that Troy excerpt. That's why I was telling my students, which is don't expect something that is that's exorbitantly, that's like extremely long. And so they're usually not quite as long.
I feel like I should edit it now then. Have I got Canvas open? Hang on, I'll stop sharing my screen so I don't.
And edit it. Oh, so then I'll give some tips, right? Which is, so when I sat down and did some practice questions to review the questions to make sure they're answerable. And I'm going to say, like, for the 20 of you people here and for the people that will be watching this post hoc, so maybe 50 to 100, you're going to find it surprisingly easy. It's not like with an MCQ exam. It's that to pass, it's exceptionally easy. To get things like a high distinction, to make sure that you answer every question appropriately, that's harder. But you're going to, for the first part, when you sit down, you're answering this, you're going to be saying, this is it. Is this really it for an open book exam? The hardest thing that I found was keeping within the word limit, especially because it's quite strict. So it's like some questions you only have 100 words which you can answer, and you want to write a full paragraph. And it's just, you've got to realize, like, from the marking perspective, when you're answering that question, just think the marker is trying to give me marks. They're trying to see, do I actually understand this? How much information do you actually need to put to indicate that you understand the concept? And that's what I found the most difficult. The other thing is, I think, like, if you're answering a question and it seems similar to the answer to the first part, because there's multiple parts, is first consider, like, is this because I'm misinterpreting the question? But also sometimes there are just overlapping answers. And so it's fine that if you're repeating some of the content from an initial question, if that happens. Has that given you enough time, Caleb? I can't keep waffling.
Yeah, hang on, I'll go back to my student view and hit the refresh button. I've just added this here. All questions have context like this, but do not have so much reading. In addition, this is kind of more important. Most questions have only 3 or fewer subparts, not 5 like this one. So you will be able to answer. So, and that's something we kind of learned from this question, because when we popped up this practice question more than a month ago, someone mentioned on Piazza, how the hell are we supposed to answer all 5 bits? And so when we ended up creating the real questions, we limited them to 3 subparts, and we actually got lecturers to type out, suggested answers, and made sure that they could be answered in not just the word limit, but well under the word limit. I think most of my questions could be answered in 90 words or less for science and stats. Now, you guys probably can't do that so concisely, but that's okay. It gives you another 30 words of something you're not sure is relevant or not. But yeah, they can be answered in that short.
And some advice for how do you approach it? I think a useful thing that you first do is just think about what the question is trying to get at. So when you're reading the case study, read it thoroughly. Then when you're looking at the question, it's like, what is the question actually trying to ask me here? So for the Troy one of them is like, what does psychoanalysis reveal about attitudes? And so then your answer should be about what psychoanalysis reveals about attitudes. And that's just it. Keep it concise.
Just an answer to the question. What you see in a short answer exam, which doesn't have a word limit, which a handwritten one, what I see in second year is people just keep on writing. More is better, apparently. And it's absolutely not. So even when the word limit is unlimited, someone who doesn't cut to the chase, answer the question, someone who waffles on, copies and pastes a page of notes, you think that you're covering your bases and you're getting the full mark by putting everything in, but in fact, you're revealing to the marker you don't know what's relevant. And because you don't know what's relevant, you're going to get outscored by someone who writes a lot less, but who hits the nail on the head, gets straight to the point.
Solid advice.
Okay.
Sorry, I missed beginning. What do you think of the Pomodoro technique and advice for psych and non-psych students? Oh, it's okay. I think it's a waste of money. I think that you should treat it like with medicine. Is there evidence for it? That should be your first question. And the answer for the Pomodoro technique is that there's never been an independent evaluation of whether it's better than providing the same things, but without the actual expense.
Yeah, I know, but Shaun, it's not like this. Look, most things can harm you because they stop you doing something that's useful. Have a read on Wikipedia.
It's $100 for a trial.
Don't pay any money. Yeah, this is something I do agree with Shaun about. Don't pay any money for it. But look, keep an open mind. See what works for you. If your study regime is self-testing, hang on, where do those overheads go? As I told you to do in the very first lecture of this entire course, then you should get a good feel for what works and what doesn't as you study. See, the problem with rereading is you have no idea whether you're learning anything or not. But if your actual study technique is testing, then you are the best source of information for what kind of learning practices work for you.
And I'll say, so from our own research, with the thesis and with our research, it's that we compared testing to other things like example generation and things like those things have benefit. But fundamentally, when you're retrieving something is that you have the opportunity for failure. And so when you're retrieving something and it's hard, don't be disheartened. That's actually a good sign. That's the part that's getting you to learn. It's the failure to retrieve that's then making it easier to subsequently retrieve that material. That's making it easier to subsequently learn. And so it should be difficult. If the study thing that you're doing is so easy, like note-taking or like reading, then it's not going to
No pain, no gain. It's like saying the exercise I do barely causes me to break a sweat. Well, it's not very good exercise then, is it? I'm just thinking, you're at the canoe club, your things are all fiberglass, aren't they?
No, we have a lot of plastic too.
Okay, because you wouldn't. I'm just looking.
No, it's not smashed fiberglass. No.
You would not get up over those barnacles with a fragile fiberglass.
No, not at all. They're probably not even plastic, to be honest. I'm not sure why you would damage your boat like that, but I guess yours is a piece of crap anyway.
It's indestructible.
These webinars have been super useful this semester, so thank you guys. Well, thank you for finding them useful.
So how they're going to change, or how I think they're going to change. Look, I think what they were meant to be was a social support. Shaun and I got is that called a student experience grant?
Yeah, student life grant, something like that.
Well, we got it, and then we bought a green screen and then and a webinar license, and then they took it away. So we didn't get to spend hardly any of it. But it was meant to be supporting live lectures on campus. And it was just meant to be this peripheral social support thing. We were going to talk about study, and we probably would have done research report stuff and exam stuff. But that wasn't the point. The point was just connect with everyone, give everyone a voice, engage with students. And the idea also was we were going to have students on campus coming on, and we had things lined up. We were starting to plan it. Second year students, the very best second year students from last year, although my idea was to get a second year student who had barely passed, we got like 52 in 1001, to come on and share what may have been a struggle, but ultimately they succeeded. Things like that. It didn't end up being that. It ended up being almost like a life capsule to try and continue to connect with everyone in the course. And it became this almost formalized revision type tool towards the end. So for next semester, one webinar a week. We don't get the lecturers on at the end of the course. We get the lecturers on every single week, not for the whole time. So it's coming up to 20 past now. So we might, let's say Franz has given his history lectures. He's only given 3, so it's not complete exam revision. Franz jumps on for a few minutes. You know Franz is coming, so you can hit him with a few history questions. And then we go back to more routine type stuff. Centrally timetable. So that's your idea, Shaun, and I hope we can do that. We'll just have to tell timetabling it's an online lecture. They won't know what a webinar is. And thoroughly integrated. So for next semester, it's going to be a more formal part of the course. So we won't be able to swear anymore, Shaun, or argue about Star Wars or whatever time-wasting stuff we've done.
We'll always argue about Star Wars, Caleb.
So it is going to change a bit. So it means this format, this super casual, whatever, yeah, this is the last one today. So it's the last time to ask why is The Last Jedi the greatest movie ever made? Because it's going to be...
What are you even talking about? I think it's a change that you guys have sort of not asked for, but indicated that is what you want. Like with the take up, like the biggest numbers were definitely for revision, for the research report. There were things that I think like we can learn on the fly. And so you guys helped shape what it's going to be next semester. And hopefully it's just more useful than
and
casual
we can look
discussion.
through the numbers. See, the other thing that I've spent so much time doing, and another hour today, was, where are they? On the recordings, and I'm not going to do this today because it's not for. So this is massive page, right? But I've kept it all on one page, so it's searchable. So if you want to know about Freud, Control F, Freud, jump straight there. I'd be surprised if our views for some of these videos don't get much, much higher during the exam even. It's fair game during the exam. Fiona Hibbert has written you a confusing question about Freud or something. Fine, go on and see what she says about it. You can actually do this with Echo 360 for lectures themselves. There's like an auto text, auto captioning, and it creates a text file for students, which means every single lecture in the course can then be searched for text.
Fascinating.
And the University of Sydney has decided to switch it off. And I don't know why, because their reasoning is, let's think the worst of our students, that if we did something like that, they wouldn't even listen to lectures. Well, that might be true for a handful of students, but I still think that would be a really good idea. I think lecturers were against it too, because they're kind of afraid of what's in their lectures, or there are even lecturers who were against recording lectures. So, suddenly I'll be accountable for what I'm saying in lectures. Why the hell aren't you accountable now? So yeah.
Next question now.
Okay.
Before we insult someone again.
Okay.
Are we allowed to access Canvas while we're doing the assessment? Yes.
Hell yes. And you know what's also awesome that Shaun and I did much, much earlier? And that is the pre-work. We made up a word, the pre-work modules. My favorite one's the social one, which I think was the last one. You can access Canvas. Piazza will not be functioning though. I'm still on there for when we were talking to Rebecca about
tripartite
videos and so on. So yes, do that. Definitely do that. It will be up. It's part of your notes. Just don't chat with anyone.
How do I know if psych is for me or if it isn't for me? Do you enjoy it? If you don't enjoy it, then it's not. And if you do enjoy it, then it is.
You'll know at the end of this year, because first year psych is all of psych. I'm sorry, guys. That's why it's so intense. We do a little bit of everything. You didn't start with psych, did you, Shaun? You started doing medical science.
I didn't even finish with psych. It just happened to be the major that I did.
When did you know?
I knew before I started uni. It was just pressure from being smart, apparently, to do medicine, according to my family and background. So
I knew in high school, actually, because I used to watch documentaries about Philip Zimbardo and Milgram and found it much more interesting than HSC.
Yeah, I was going over my bookshelf because I've got too many books. And then I found a book that I bought just after year 12 had finished. And it was The History of Psychology. It's a textbook. And then I scribbled notes all over it from start to end. And so I think it was pretty early when I started liking psychology. Yeah. That's just one personal journey. You can like it after a year. You can hate it after a year. If you don't, that's fine.
Yeah. If you like it, go for it. If you like it, you will become good at it. Don't
Yeah.
be put off by your report mark or any kinds of struggles.
Mm-hmm.
And intrinsic motivation that comes from enjoyment or a willingness to master something, that will get you through. You just have to be patient and work hard.
Yep. Are there any updates about Sem 2? Are we having normal classes or are we going to campus normally? How we can discuss about this?
We don't know yet.
Still don't know.
It's a really good question. I ask people that question every week. What's going to happen? We at least know the dates now when it's starting. It's starting 3 weeks later. And I'd be surprised if you haven't been hammered with emails like that already. If you haven't, let me know and I can see if I'm allowed to tell you those dates formally. So the dates for semester 2 have changed. Are we having normal classes? No, we will probably commence with Zoom classes. Are we going to campus normally? No, not at first, but perhaps by the end of semester, yes.
The tone has shifted with through internal emailing. It has shifted where it's a bit more optimistic. A couple of weeks, even a month ago, it was much more pessimistic about opening campus at all, and now it's like,
look, this is my view, but I'm not allowed to give direct advice about what is going to happen. So just take this as Caleb's opinion about what might happen. And that is, I think that it'll kind of be the opposite of semester 1, where it will start off completely locked down, and then there will be the option to slowly open things up. But I suspect that even by the end, it will kind of be like the schools reopening, where we might reopen, but then we'll have 2 groups of students, a local group of students saying, well, I don't want to come back, or I don't feel safe coming back. And international students who are like, well, it's not worth me moving to Sydney and starting a lease for the last 4 weeks of campus. So bugger it, I'm staying here in Beijing. And I'd like to hope that we can say to both groups of students, we will accommodate you by continuing online classes. Or not even, when I say local students, it could be someone who lost their job, had to move to Dubbo, back home with the parents. Hope that's going well for you. And why should they come back and start a new lease in Sydney if, it's going to be too expensive to move back at short notice. So I'd like to be able to promise that there will be an online option throughout the whole of semester. But I can't because I'm not sure what's going to happen. So I think your best bet is to assume that most of the semester will be online. We are also planning for a take-home exam as well, which is why I want to reduce the weighting of the final exam to 55% and raise the weighting of the research report to 35%, because you guys put so much work into the research report. That's not happening now, though. That could be for next semester if the changes are approved. So, look, I'm just really sorry. We don't know either. This level of uncertainty, the only person who knows what's happening and is certain about what's happening is Donald Trump. And as a great philosopher, what was his name? Caleb something or other, a rare philosopher called Caleb. No, it's not me, Shaun. Speaking of narcissists. He said something like, be interested by people who are seeking the truth, but never trust someone who has found the truth. I think I've got it on a lecture slide, so I've kind of mangled it a bit. But we don't know what's going to happen, unfortunately. We don't have that level of certainty yet. So it's a good question, but unfortunately we can't answer it now.
My meeting ID does not work. Don't know what to do. Neither do we. Call ICT. They'll have the answers.
Is this a Zoom question?
I'm guessing so. Just call ICT with tech questions. Don't worry about it. I'll put you on hold for like 10 minutes and then you'll get a solid answer.
Meeting ID. Okay.
What topics have we got to look forward to for PSYC1002?
I can remember 5, but I bet the 6th one will screw me up. Do you remember any one?
I do, yeah.
Okay, so cognitive processes, because I'm lecturing it. What else?
There is, well, now you've screwed me up to abnormal, everyone's favorite.
Abnormal, yeah. What you thought psychology was.
Now you go. We'll go one at a time.
Mental abilities, so intelligence testing and things like that.
Yeah.
Learning and motivation. So behaviorism, basically. That's 4. See, it gets so bloody hard.
That's cognitive processes, natural cap at how much.
Neuroscience.
Neuroscience, yep.
brain
And
stuff.
perception. And perception.
And perception.
Yay. Got them all.
Okay, that's 6.
Okay, wait, that was confusing. So cognitive processes,
processes.
abnormal, neuroscience, perception, mental abilities, and
You did them in a different order. Learning and motivation.
learning and motivation.
Okay. Very popular topics too. Not as odd as first semester, just because the lecturers are kind of normal people. They're not as eccentric. Even I'm a normal person when I lecture cognitive processes. I don't need to do any gymnastics the way I did with science and stats.
Then how do I know if anything is for me? I haven't enjoyed any classes since secondary school.
Oh dear,
That's fine,
maybe
but
university is not for you then.
that's
Not a cruel thing to say.
It's not the cruel thing to say.
Why
no, but
waste your time and money if you're not enjoying things?
I'll say, like with university, there's a reason that everything is so open, and it's like just try stuff. It's fine. Take your time. It doesn't matter if it takes you an extra year or two. Just try stuff. If eventually you find something that you like, then that's great. And if you don't, then you don't have to love the work that you do. You just need to earn enough money to keep the roof over your house.
Shaun obviously went to university in the Gough Whitlam days when university was free, but taking an extra year now can be quite expensive. So,
well, expensive in the long run. You don't feel that immediately. You got HEX, so.
All right, yeah. So you're just kicking the can down the road.
Kick the can as long as it goes. Do you recommend taking PSYC1002 in summer school? I do not. I think just take it in normal.
Yeah, and look, watch out this year because second semester is getting pushed back by 3 weeks, then we're being told that the deadline to return our final marks for semester 2 is in January.
Yeah, and that would overlap. Yeah, that's awful.
So summer school's not even going to be in summer at this rate. So it's not bad. So people like Shaun even become lecturers. But so high quality stuff, but no, the main semester gives you a lot more time to sort things through. Plus, with the disruptions, we never know when summer school is going to be next year.
Mm-hmm. Can we still ask questions to the lecturers up until the 12th of June?
That's the day before the exam. Yeah, why not?
They don't have to answer.
But short questions, not, well, I don't know, what's a good question? Like the ones I don't like are, can you explain this whole topic to me again? Well, no, there's a recording of it. And, but yeah, so please try and ask good questions, but I don't see why you couldn't do it up until Friday, the 12th of June. I'll certainly check my email until the close of business on that day. Make them good questions though.
What's that hidden word on Caleb's diagram, your submission?
What diagram? This
Hidden
one.
word.
And not...
Oh.
What, this hidden word?
Yeah.
Oh, that's, if you watch Father Ted, that's fecking. Have you ever seen Father Ted?
I have, yeah. Yeah, I don't like it that much.
Just the writers of it's an Irish drama, and there's a lot of
that has to be Graham.
Feck off.
Has to be Graham. Even here, we're blaming him for something that he might not even be here to do.
Okay. You can, and you probably can't read this on the webinar either. You can. This single page has many layers of entertainment.
Mm-hmm. If I'm going back to my home country, not in Australia, will I be able to complete semester 2 online?
Oh man, that's the $1 million question, and I will ask people that question on your behalf. I would not enroll in semester 2 until you have an answer to that question. But that's why all that stuff I was saying a few minutes ago, I prefaced it by saying, I don't know. I really don't know.
Wish we did.
This is a really good question. Do not enroll in semester 2 until you have an answer. I suspect the answer is yes, but you know, I don't know. I don't know.
Will we have access to materials on Canvas during the exam? Yes. Like
everything except Piazza.
Nope. Everything but Piazza. Simple.
Well, no. You'll have. I don't know if I. It would be nice to lock posting on Piazza, but not lock some of the useful stuff people have been talking about on Piazza. So I'll see what I can do, but definitely everything except Piazza.
Is the format of the exam like a quiz where we type in our answers, or is it like a report where we type our answers on a Word doc and submit it in? It's like a report, exactly as you described. You can read more about that in the FAQ.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm a teacher. I need to get you in trouble. Read through this and your question is answered. And there might be something more important than your question in this document, because your question reveals you haven't read it, but there's your answer. It's just like a mini assignment.
Yep. Why is The Last Jedi the greatest movie ever made? It's not. It's a terrible movie.
Every movie created in the Western world for entertainment has been about the superhero, the success, the triumph. The Last Jedi is about failure and learning from failure. So, and Shaun is doing a PhD on the value of self-testing and reflecting on failure and having your ego threatened and reality overtake you. This was a topic of the research report too, guys. To quote Yoda, failure is the greatest teacher.
Here's a list of movies that are better than The Last Jedi. Godfather, Godfather 2,
Emily,
Citizen Kane.
Edward Scissorhands.
Edward Scissorhands, yeah.
Okay,
Lord of the Rings 1, Lord of the Rings 2, Lord of the Rings 3. They're all better.
Lord of the Rings 1? No, I'm not a fan.
Yeah, Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah, The Fellowship was the greatest movie. Even the guy who plays Aragorn said that was the only good movie, because that was the movie where the actors knew what the hell they were doing.
Fellowship of the Ring is number one.
There was minimal CGI. Yeah, that's why Fellowship is the best. With the lack of CGI in that movie, they actually knew what was going on. But in the last two movies, the Aragorn guy was like, geez, we had no idea what we were looking at half the time.
Hi, I remember there was an update of the learning outcomes from the topics. Do you know which one it was? It was personality. Otherwise, do you have a compilation of them in one place? We have both of those things. It was personality.
It was personality. And that was more or less completely revised. Here we go, learning outcomes. It's before your lecture content. So personality, it was more or less everything. But then when we had Micah on to our webinar last Friday, because that had happened, I asked him. And so all of personality was changed. And Micah changed lecture 6. He changed it directly. I don't know what he changed, but yeah, he did it himself though. I just said, yeah, go on and edit away. So those are the two ones. And yes, they're in the same place. That's what I wanted. You know, you guys, this is the best way to study if you're short of time. Let me go back to show you where that was. It's right at the top of the lecture content per se.
What's your favorite movie of all time? Pick one. Godfather Part 2. There you go. Simple.
Emily. You've seen that one, haven't you? With Audrey Tautou. You haven't seen Emily?
How do you spell Emily?
Jesus Christ. Amelie. Oh man. Tell your girlfriend. She'll be shocked as well. She will.
I'd be surprised if she'd watch it. She's not much of a movie watcher.
Geez,
what's your favorite movie, person? Pick one. People have been telling me psychology is easy, but I don't think so.
They're just trying to psych you out. In my ultimate guide to the exam, it does say somewhere, don't go online and be psyched out by people.
And also people find different things easy and entertaining. So,
and plus psychology itself, it's diverse. Some topics you will find easy. Some of them you'll find hard.
Yep. What is Caleb's area of specialization? I feel like you've said, but I think I didn't catch it. It's cognitive psychology, but it's attentional awareness as well. So you can get hyper-specific. Cognition is the overall domain, and he's interested in awareness and attention.
Yeah, look, I did my PhD on attentional capture, and I'm running like hell from that field now. It's a very nasty field, so I'd like to publish more in educational psychology. If you're lining up an honours and you're interested in working with me.
His specialization is being a coordinator. He's done that for 15 years, so that's much more definitive than a PhD thesis. If everything is online again for next semester, do you think we can have like discount of tuition fee for international students? That's not Caleb's choice.
This semester? I hope you got one this semester.
Complain like hell if you don't. That's my advice for you. Complain like hell.
I hope it wasn't a miss the email and you don't get it kind of thing. I hope you did receive some kind of discount. So yes, I think you should demand that, expect that. Unfortunately, I'm not the person to decide such things.
In which scenarios would you recommend doing any units in intensive, January, July, December? If you don't do very well in normal school, or if you have literally no time and want to drop down to one unit that isn't PSYC1002, like those are things that you could do. So it's like time management, or you haven't done well.
If it's going to cost you a whole semester or a whole year, so for example, so let's just stick to psych because that's what what we're talking about. But let's say you fail psych 1001 tragically, but you pass 1002, then it would make sense to do 1001 in summer school or January intensive, because then you're ready for second year and you haven't actually lost any time. Having given that advice, that may not apply next year though, because if the January intensive starts late, it'll be too late to have your results for 1001 processed for you to then get into second semester. This thing's messed up everything up, hasn't it?
It's messed the entire world up, Caleb. It's hardly important that it messed up our timetabling.
So
next question.
Ask a lot of people, psychology.education@sydney.edu.au, psychology.education@sydney.edu.au. Ask a lot of people for advice. It's worth doing it if it's then going to put you back on track. If you are trying to accelerate things, it's probably a bad idea. It's really only for making up for hopefully one or two units that you failed, putting you back on track. Mm-hmm. That's when I'd recommend doing it, not to try and accelerate things, because you still pay the same fees.
Old Boy 2003. Thank you.
Oh, the Korean one? I've seen that. That is a magnificent movie, but I never want to watch it again because it was too gory. Thank you, South Korean cinema.
Do you guys think there will be COVID-19 part 2?
It'll be called COVID-20 or COVID-20.
No, it'll be called the second wave. That's what we're anticipating. It's hard to know.
See, having had experience with superbugs, I always imagined bacteria would kill us because they evolve so much faster than viruses. Anyway, what a question to ask us.
I asked my epidemiologist friend about what he thinks is going to end the world, and he thought it was urinary tract infections, actually, because they're very, very difficult to treat and they evolve quite rapidly. So,
look, anything's possible. I'm just biased towards bacteria because that's what came closest to killing me at some point. And yeah, to skip all those people in casualty with broken limbs and just be told, yep, you're in serious trouble. It suddenly made you realize, plus bacteria, they rule the planet, they run our bodies, they're most of our body weight, Mm-hmm. Viruses are just these peripheral things that occasionally hurt us.
The reason they didn't think it was bacteria is because we wouldn't be useful hosts if we were exterminated. The reason that we would survive is because bacteria have formed like symbiotic relationships with us, while viruses, like you say, don't really care about us that much. So,
yeah. Well, another book I read this year was about gut bacteria and how your diet is basically destroying you because you're changing the biome based on all the crap you're eating. So we could potentially turn our bodies into safe harbors for terrible bacteria. It is harder to spread bacteria though. It's less likely to be caught in a breeze, but it can still be spread.
What is the biggest risk a student has ever taken?
We're about to discover that, because even though I say in tiny type here, those students you hear about who accidentally submit blank files with 10 seconds to go, that happened for the research report this year, and it's gonna happen for this final exam. And we actually get this data, and we can often see someone has submitted at 11:58 and 58 seconds, and they've narrowly snuck in.
Here I was thinking like Tiananmen Square or the civil rights protests. Or
the question was?
I don't know. You went probably a way they were thinking, whereas my mind went somewhere
anniversary
very different.
Tiananmen Square this week. Really? See how focused I am on the final exam? Biggest risk of students.
Next question. Can't even answer this no matter what. Okay. Please give me a non-cliche advice for failure. It's how you learn. Imagine a world where you couldn't fail. That would be extraordinarily boring and shit. So failure is something that helps you learn, helps you live. So there you go.
Oh, there's a meme on the internet and it says something like, if you're embarrassed or ashamed about something you did in the past, that means you've grown.
Mm.
So if you kind of get all anxious, and I know sometimes do this, you think about something really embarrassing you did when you're a teenager or something like that, which happens a lot when you're a teenager. That's not a cause for concern. The fact that you now know how embarrassing that was means you have moved on and you have grown from the experience. Look around the world at the moment. The people who are admitting defeat, admitting problems, they are succeeding more than the people who are refusing to admit any kind of error. Failure is the greatest teacher.
Mm-hmm. That was cliche, though.
That was cliche. Oh, man.
I feel so stressed by the personality. I'm stressed by my personality too. You're not alone. This topic is confusing and we don't have enough lecture notes. Can you give me some advices about what are we expected to know and understand from this topic? We had a webinar about it and we also have the learning outcomes.
Learning outcomes.
If the notes aren't sufficient, then rewatch the lectures. You can do it in double speed. Those are the best pieces of advice I can give you.
I'm sorry about this. It is a tricky topic.
It definitely is.
Look, the feedback I got from my own students in my tutorial is it's not as philosophical as it was last year, but there's still probably a bit of that running through it. Fiona is a philosopher by training, so we will continue to look at this lecture series. Look, the good news is Fiona will assist with marking a lot of the exam papers, and I will be right behind her saying, Fiona, we're not failing 60% of people for this particular exam section. I want people to go as well in this topic as they are in the other topics. So please construct a rubric that is very fair to people who might have struggled a bit with quite a difficult topic. So I feel for your...
You're not alone. Yep, you're not alone. Would that mean that the final exams for semester 2 will be in the Great Hall?
Really want to do an exam in the Great Hall.
I don't know.
On your bucket list for being a Sydney Uni student. Look, they're not in a Great Hall anyway.
The Great Hall sucks.
40 different venues. Yeah, that's true. It's cold. Anything in that quad building is cold and horrible, even in the middle of summer. No, I'm guessing no. I think they will be take-home exams too. That's what I'm planning for. So
we don't know. It's too far in the future anyway.
You'll graduate in the Great Hall.
If we do Psych 1001 and 1002 as a major, you can't do 1001 as the major, but I get where you're going with that. Is it the same as doing the Bachelor of Psychology, or if we transfer, will we have to do extra subjects? Kat did answer this, and if I'm remembering correctly, there's very little difference between doing it as a major or as the bachelor, except for that you have to do all the subjects in the bachelor, and you can choose to do some in the major.
Yeah.
And you have guaranteed entry from doing the bachelor without guaranteed entry into honors from doing it as a major.
I'm not going to find it for you now, but I'm going to show you. So the careers webinar, I answered this question. Let me see
it's in the careers webinar.
All that work I put into in the notes.
Paid off.
There's one question on PSYC, but it's in the careers one. Handbook says, where's that work? Oh, that was the careers one. Okay.
Entry. Yep.
Wow. See, okay, so not sure exactly where it was, but we talked about PSYC quite often. So watch that double speed, triple speed, and you'll see me talking about the differences. If you want to pursue psychology as a career, don't do a psychology major, do a psychology program. A major is 2-3-3, 2 first year, 2 second year, 2 third year. The program is 2-4-4, 2 first year, all 4 units in second year and 4 units in third year. And now that is as close as possible to the PSYC. Now, very few people actually transfer to the PSYC. Don't worry, you don't have to. There's plenty of people graduate with honors in psychology and become psychologists from Bachelor of Arts or Bachelor of Science. But do make sure that you are doing the psychology program not the psychology major. Definitely look at that careers webinar, because we do talk about fitting that in. People ask questions about in that webinar.
Mm-hmm.
That's your best source.
If you, Caleb, think that Old Boy 2003 is too
No, I
gory, then
saw
you've been
it. I
missing a lot.
appreciated it.
Evil Dead, I Saw the Devil, Hellraiser. Next question. I wish there was an English translator that translates English into a simpler version so that I can understand them lectures.
English translator that translates. Yeah, look, this is our problem as well. I think I said something earlier in this actual webinar, hit the nail on the head, but then I heard myself saying it and I said, try and be precise or try and be concise. The hardest thing in English is, they call it idiosyncratic phrases.
Mm.
Like, we don't realize we're doing it. Sometimes during a tutors meeting, I'll catch myself and then ask our international tutors, did you even understand what I said? You can Google such phrases, but it's hard doing that at great speed. So I think that thing I mentioned earlier, that function of Echo 360 that Sydney University's chosen not to switch on, which turns voice into text, that could be helpful. But look, think about it this way. You're getting a degree in your second language. That is high status in your home country, okay? You don't want to have a little asterisk at the bottom of your degree saying, look, this degree was in English, but it was simplified English. So if you're courageous and ambitious enough to get a degree in your second language, you're going to have to follow through on that and get it in your second language without a shortcut, unfortunately.
From forest fire to COVID-19, do you think we might have an alien invasion later in 2020? I doubt it.
No, I'm worried about President Trump declaring that he will not have an election after all.
I have come to every webcam from the start and I'm weirdly going to miss them. We're going to miss you guys too, but also it's a lot of work, so it'll be good to have a bit of a break.
It was a lot of work, and I literally would be out kayaking right now because it's the awesome low wind at the moment. If you did that and you're watching the recording later, you lucky person. But yeah, as I said earlier, these were a combination of social support during this crisis and good content, and we're going to kind of formalize them for next semester.
Mm-hmm. Is there advice to spare for time management? I can't stick to a schedule. A good piece of evidence that I read was about having a diary where you tally the amount of things that you do. So it's not about time management. It's about thinking, I want to do this amount of things in a day, and then observing whether or not you did it. And if you didn't do it, is it because you spent too much time doing procrastinating things? So keep a tally of things that you're doing, like maybe have a dichotomy where it's like exam related, not exam related, and just put a dot down every time you've done it. Set goals, don't set for time, basically.
And what Shaun just described is kind of like collecting data for yourself. And if there's something humans are very bad at, it's estimating how long things take. So it's a bit of a shock, particularly in your first semester, first year, to realize just how time-consuming study is. And all that advice that last year students gave you at the beginning of semester, start the report early, start studying early, study as you go. You probably read that and thought, that's what StuVac's for, and now you're kind of struggling. So it's not just the content of the courses you're learning how best to study, and reflecting on how long things take to read, how long things then take to understand, which is a lot longer than reading. Yep.
Well, because the thing is, say, for example, when you're marking research reports, I don't go and say, I'm going to set 2 hours to mark them. I say that I want to mark 6 a day. And then if I can't do that, then I need to start earlier. And so that's what you guys should be doing. You have 20 lectures. I need to study 5 lectures a day. That's it. Doesn't matter how long you study, as long as you get that work done.
Yeah. So like a goal-based process rather than time-based.
What is the best time to submit the exam? Like, should I spend the whole day on the exam?
All on the graphic. So I've got here, this is kind of significant advice. Don't skip it. Submit once you have answered all the questions and before you take a break or sleep. You don't want to go to bed and wake up at 9:10. So submit then, have a incubate, go for a walk in the sun, and then submit again if you need to make changes. But this is hours away. It's a very specific question. No, don't spend the whole day. Spend 2.5 to 3 hours on it, because that's all it should take.
When do we lose? Okay, we don't know the answer, sorry.
Yeah,
But
I think it's the end,
June,
but I don't
where
know.
do we access that submission graphic again, please? On the FAQ, right, Caleb, at the end?
Yeah, so final exam. I can't remember where I put it. I kind of put it here. When should I submit my exam questions? Just test it, see if it works. Yes. Okay.
Oh, wow.
What do you mean, oh, wow? Of course it works.
Yeah.
A surprise. I think we're going to get to the end of these. It's not, there aren't 5 more questions, it's 4 more compliments. No.
Will short response questions have more than one possible correct answer? Slightly worried about the word limit and my inability to be concise. It'd be a comfort to know the questions will be straightforward. I think they're straightforward, but that doesn't necessarily mean there aren't more than one possible correct answers. But I think they are straightforward.
Very straightforward. Yeah.
It's hard
Answer in
to,
words.
yeah, and it's hard to construct a question where it can only have one correct answer. Like there are different ways to answer it.
Here's the thing though, when you've got a word count, you're basically being asked to prioritize what you think is the most important, and that helps the marker, because what you think is most important may not be the most important. So yeah, it's just something you're going to have to manage.
Mm-hmm. Will marks be taken off if we exceed the word limit? You just stop reading, right? And that would be...
Yeah, we'll stop reading. It would be catastrophic. It would be catastrophic if you went over the word limit, because it will just be cut off. So don't do that. Don't do that. Not even by 5%. That is an absolute maximum. And I'll just show off that page again, because I promised I'd do this and I did it. I put up the first page of the exam. Oh, did I? Hang on. If it's not there, I can. First page.
Nope, not there.
Final exam. There it is. Draft cover page. So this is the first page of your exam, mainly for exam anxiety. But you can see here, almost the very first thing it says is this is an absolute maximum. This is not our 1150 research report word count, go over by 5%. This is an absolute maximum. Excess words do not count towards marks. That is the first sentence on the exam itself. So no, don't go over. It won't be read, and it's catastrophic then, because your words will go into the next question and you may lose an entire question. So don't do that.
How would you like the responses? Like, should we rewrite the question and then put the answer, or just question number and then put the answer?
Okay, should we rewrite the question? The other thing on this, brutally straightforward, front page of the exam, is do not copy and paste questions into the document. Okay, do not. 1A, 1B, type your answer. That's sufficient. Okay, these are all good questions, by the way.
Yep, I wish they were liked more so we could get to them earlier. FYI, they did send an email about the date that semester 2 will start. Awesome. Great. Okay. Like, you're not just typing key dates, UCID, and then it'll go there. Caleb, are you the coordinator for PSYC1002? Yes, it's no H, PSYC1002 without the H. FYI.
Should I take that as a compliment, or is that, oh my God?
Both. It's both things.
Yes, I am.
How do we transfer to Bachelor of Psychology?
You have to go through UAC, and nobody does it. And you know what the reason why nobody does it? Because the kinds of people who do it, who ask about it, are like, well, I want to be a psychologist, so I have to do PSYC, don't I? And they quickly realize that, oh, you don't have to do Bachelor of Psychology to be a psychologist. So I heard of 2 people that transferred, maybe one in 2015, one in 2011. But maybe that was just a rumor. It's really that low because you don't need to. But if you want to, you have to go through UAC. What does that stand for, Shaun?
University Admission Committee or something?
Something like that. UAC. That's how you got into university in the first place. I think we're done. We're done. Thank you. It was a compliment.
It is a compliment.
Okay, I just want to hit
Admission Center. There you go.
People, I don't know, it's 50 or 60. Don't worry about it. Don't have to be there. I just want to go through Piazza in our dying minute of the entire webinars. So for this one, I'm going to copy and paste this. Oops, where did Piazza go? Students answer. Yeah, okay, fine. Answer is here. Okay. That is the tutorial content assessed? Structure of exam questions.
That's also been answered in there. Thank you.
I wonder if there was a particular structure. Just answer the question. I know it seems like a kind of a rude response, but a lot of students, they don't have confidence in answering questions, but they do have confidence in copying and pasting lecture notes. So yes, answer the question.
Ooh, a history one. Describe how psychiatric treatments differ from psychological treatments and why this transition occurred.
Vicarious, someone's answered that. Good on you. You know, students, you can collaborate on the answer as well. Just not a question. Intellectual. If we were asked a question, admissibility criteria, whether or not it would be incorrect to answer, I don't know the answer to that one.
Neither do I.
Maybe ask Helen themselves. Oh, wow. So this was a question in our webinar that's already been answered. And someone has tracked the changes and they've, wow, awesome. Thank you, Anonymous Mouse. My student login, so I can't see who anyone is. Okay, done that.
I think that's it then.
Week 12. They're looking for the Jane Elliott video.
Yeah, the video doesn't matter.
The pre-work contains Oprah. So,
oh, that's how you spell Oprah.
Excerpt, how do you spell excerpt? Excerpt, which is also about Jane Elliott. I'm going to link to the pre-work, just because I like that social pre-work. I know that wasn't the first one we made, but it's the one I think is the coolest.
The coolest one is definitely neuroscience.
I thought you said that was the best one.
The best one is the learning one.
Okay. I think we're structural versus dynamic. Oh, we answered that. This was answered in the webinar.
Yeah, you're right.
Oh, man. Okay.
Great.
I mean, it's odd when you say that. It's almost as if the webinar communities and the Piazza communities are different.
I think the webinar community is a bit more specific, whereas the Piazza is a bit more general. People are used to Piazza from other subjects.
Fiona answered this herself towards the end of the webinar. What date was that one? Did we have Fiona on?
I'm sure if you type in dynamic, you'll be able to find it.
Fiona. Oh, I didn't put that. Dynamic. Excellent. That was the 22nd of May webinar. So guys, if you're bouncing around Piazza next week and there's all these panic questions, do as I'm doing, always throw in a link, because the person who's asking that has missed out on the webinar clearly. So,
well, this was asked before the webinar.
It was asked before? Yeah, that's true. But yeah. Okay.
Cool. All done.
Enough. Thanks everyone. Thanks, Shaun.
Thank you, Caleb, and thanks everyone for joining.
Marathon webinar effort. Look, we learned a lot. We learned what to do, what not to do, the best formats, the best guests. You know, thank you to Hayley. She's been very popular, and Sarah, who came on and helped us a lot. Thanks, Rena. I'm glad you enjoyed this subject, this topic, and good luck for the exam, everyone.
Good luck for the exam, everyone. See you next week, Caleb.
Yep. Okay. Have a good long weekend, Shaun.
Same to you guys.
Study well, everyone. Be safe.